Quick roll call before we dive in. Where are you watching from? And what's the single biggest question you have about Gervonta Tank Davis versus Jake Paul? Is this a smart move or a dangerous gamble? Will size and reach be the difference, or does elite skill win the day? Drop your take in the comments, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our full coverage of the Netflix boxing event, catchweight details, undercard news, and fight week updates. Jake Paul is not whispering about this fight. He's shouting it from every rooftop. He says he's visualized it, manifested it, and he's sleeping this guy with a knockout of the year on November 14th. This isn't just promotional noise. It's deliberate framing, a promise to produce the most viral knockout in boxing, a moment that travels beyond the sport into mainstream culture. That bravado has put real stakes on a matchup that already splits fans. On one side, a three-division world champion in Gervonta Davis, a pound-for-pound talent with elite timing, power, and championship composure. On the other, Jake Paul, the crossover attraction who's pulled a new generation into boxing with massive Netflix and pay-per-view audiences, and a style built on size, power, and relentless showmanship. From the moment Paul declared he'll deliver the most viral knockout ever, the conversation shifted from if this fight should happen to what it means if it goes wrong for Davis. Purists argue the risk-to-reward ratio is all wrong. It's rare for a bona fide multi-division champion to face a heavier, less skilled opponent in a crossover event. If Davis were to lose or even get dropped, the optics could overwhelm the context. Casual viewers won't calibrate for catchweight or 30-plus pounds on fight night. They'll just see the clip. That's why so many analysts keep returning to the legacy question. A veteran voice put it plainly: Davis has more to lose. The lightweights live by angles, speed, and explosive precision. Against a much bigger man, clinching and resetting is not so simple. When a heavyweight figure cuts the ring and leans on you, there's less air to breathe and fewer exits off the ropes. Could Tank's power, which has melted elite 135 and 140-pounders, dent a man who rehydrates far bigger? If the answer is yes, the payoff is enormous. A viral visual that would live forever and silence the "fight a real boxer" chorus that shadows Jake Paul. If the answer is no and Davis gets buzzed, the clip plays on loop for years. The backlash started early. Some critics say Davis has been rewarded with a spectacle rather than pushed toward the fights they feel benefit boxing most. They argue his career arc, despite an undefeated record, multiple belts, and sellout gates, has sidestepped certain names at 135 and 140 in favor of business plays. In their eyes, Paul versus Davis is the latest example of promotion outpacing sporting merit. Jake Paul, predictably, isn't flinching. He's leaning into this more than any fight since his first major pay-per-view. He's promising a knockout that will dominate headlines, and he's pitching the event as bigger than belts. Two of the most visible American fighters on a single Netflix card, with back-to-back championship bouts on the undercard and a main event built to break the internet. The message is clear: this isn't about winning on points. It's about seizing a cultural moment. There is, however, a measured counterpoint coming from inside the ring. Rolando "Raleigh" Romero, never shy, and one of Tank's past opponents, has urged people to keep Davis's resume in perspective. A single night, he argues, doesn't erase a decade of work. Tank's a three-division world champion, Romero reminded fans in a recent reel. At the end of it, you can't take anything away from him. He acknowledged the obvious: size is real, and a much bigger guy can put you down if he lands clean, but he dismissed the idea that one result could wipe out Davis's legacy. Daniel Cormier's reaction captured another sentiment: shock. In a short clip that went viral, the former UFC champion said he couldn't believe Davis would take this fight. He called it ridiculous on paper, not because of skill. He was explicit that Davis is a much better boxer, but because of physics. Tank weighed 133.8 pounds in his last fight. Paul has been north of 180 on several occasions. DC framed the risk from both angles. If Paul loses to a smaller man, his entire influencer-to-boxer narrative takes a hit. If Davis loses to a much bigger man, the public won't spend time unpacking the technicals. They'll just react to the result. And yet, Cormier admitted what most of us will do on fight night: I will watch this. Curiosity wins. KSI, who's lived the influencer boxing boom from inside the ring, took aim at the hype cycle that blurs sport and entertainment. He mocked the swirl around a rumored Anthony Joshua fight for Paul and a general trend in which records and resumes become marketing props. His point wasn't that these fights are impossible. It's that the noise often drowns out technical analysis until round 1 starts. Journalist Gareth A. Davies went further, calling the matchup a circus fight if the weight gap lands anywhere near the early chatter. 5 stone, 70 pounds from walk-in to ring time. He didn't mince words about the exhibition label either. It may say exhibition on the poster, but the business is real. In his telling, everyone fights Jake Paul because they know they're making millions of those greenbacks. He predicted the build-up will be ruthless, with Paul's trash talk already landing nicknames and memes, and he questioned whether anyone can pick a winner with conviction when the variables are this unusual. One person who isn't downplaying those variables is Tank himself. He's been frank about what concerns him. He wants to feel Jake's power, test the reach, measure the rhythm, and see how Paul uses his size. He acknowledged that Paul has a kind of mental persistence that has rattled past opponents. None of that changes the bottom line for Davis. He plans to adapt in real time on November 14th, break Paul's timing, and force mistakes. He's confident that when you strip away the noise, skill and IQ decide the fight. Supporters of this matchup say that's exactly why it matters. For Gen Z and Gen Alpha, boxing now lives at the intersection of sport and story. Jake Paul's ecosystem, YouTube, TikTok, Netflix, pulls in fans who don't buy traditional pay-per-views. Gervonta Davis, in contrast, represents the other pillar: raw authenticity, no filter, and a highlight reel style that fills arenas. If you want to grow the sport, this argument goes, you need both. You need the spectacle to bring them in and the skill to keep them there. Behind the scenes, Most Valuable Promotions co-founder Nikki Sabidarian has tried to calm the size debate. He insists they're not hiding a mismatch with the exhibition tag. He says the rules, round length, glove size, exact weight, will be set to ensure a real fight. He also claims this was always the plan once a Canelo Alvarez bout fell through, adding that Tank has been referencing Jake for years. The irony, as Bidarian points out, is that for a long time the internet insisted Tank would kill Jake. Now that the fight is real, those same corners highlight size as the decisive factor. His view, that's exactly why the fight is compelling. It tests both narratives. On paper, Tank owns the skill column. He's been a decorated professional for over a decade with an almost spotless record, multiple world titles, and knockouts that stopped crowds in their tracks. He's shown elite timing, ring IQ, and adaptability across styles. Jake Paul has improved measurably. His jab is tighter, his defense more disciplined, but he hasn't faced anyone as complete as Davis. That is the crux of the boxing analysis. The rebuttal focuses on risk and optics. Some fans accuse Davis of chasing the most lucrative option at the expense of fighting names like Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez, or Keyshawn Davis. They argue that, decades from now, resume lines matter more than viral numbers. The counterpoint is simple but powerful. Davis has already built a resume with world titles and an undefeated record. Choosing a crossover bout now doesn't erase what's in the books. In the modern boxing economy, money, media, and matchup calculus are intertwined. There are multiple roads to greatness. Paul, for his part, shrugs at belts. He said repeatedly that belts collect dust, and that what he's done, breaking viewership records, staging massive events, and dragging mainstream attention back to boxing, is unprecedented. He's beaten high-profile names from MMA like Anderson Silva and fought a sanctioned event with Mike Tyson on Netflix's biggest stage, even if injury and rescheduling muddled the timing. When presented with an honorary title, he declined. He wants to earn what counts, not accept a trophy ceremony. Then there's the next call-out. True to form, Paul has already named Anthony Joshua as the post-Tank target. The boxing world reacted on cue. Some scoffed, others admired the audacity. With Joshua's Olympic gold, heavyweight power, and elite resume, most insiders see it as fantasy, especially given Paul's typical ring weight and Tank's natural class at 135. Analysts have reminded everyone that Paul's lowest listed weights in the early days were around 175 to 185, and that Davis, even when he's come in light, is nowhere near the mass Paul rehydrates to on fight night. It reads like theater. But theater has been Jake Paul's lane from day one. Amid the hype, here are the hard questions that decide Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul. What is the weight, and how does it play on fight night? The catch weight number is only half the story. Rehydration limits, glove size, and round length will matter just as much. How does Tank close distance safely? Against a taller, longer man, feet and feints must do more work. Davis's ability to shorten exchanges without getting smothered is the technical key. Can Jake set and maintain range? If Paul's jab, framing hand, and right hand down the pipe can keep Tank honest, he buys time to set power. Whose gas Tank holds under stress? Big men often look good for 4 rounds and then fade. Smaller technicians rely on efficiency. This is where pacing decisions could decide everything. What happens if someone touches the canvas? Fair or not, optics will drive the post-fight narrative. A Davis knockdown of Paul becomes a viral exclamation point. A Paul knockdown of Davis becomes a clip that overshadows context. At the end of the day, the business is obvious. This is a Netflix boxing event designed to stack audience and revenue. Everyone at the top level knows a Jake Paul fight guarantees 7-figure purses. That doesn't make it meaningless. It makes it modern boxing. The sport has always balanced sporting purity with showmanship, from exhibition tours a century ago to closed-circuit nights in the 1970s to pay-per-view monsters in the 1990s. This is the streaming era's version of the same equation. So, is this a smart career move for Gervonta Davis or a dangerous gamble? The answer depends on what you value. If you want the sport to be ranked and regulated to the decimal, you see the risk. If you want boxing to reach new fans and test myths in the ring, you see the opportunity. If Tank wins big, he elevates his brand beyond hardcore fans. If Paul pulls off the upset, he legitimizes the crossover movement in a way no headline could match. Both outcomes change the conversation. Your turn. Is size and reach the deciding factor, or does elite speed and timing beat weight on November 14th? Does this exhibition hurt the integrity of boxing, or is it the kind of crossover that keeps the sport relevant to Gen Z and Gen Alpha? And what should come next for both men, Shakur, Teofimo, Keyshawn, or Anthony Joshua on the horizon? Tell us in the comments. If you're here for full fight week coverage of Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul, official catch weight and rules, undercard breakdowns, open workout takeaways, press conference moments, and real technical analysis, like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell. We'll be live on weigh-in day, breaking down size, reach, and rehydration, and we'll have instant post-fight reactions the moment the final bell rings.